Hello, everybody. It is Heather Esposito here, and I am here with the one and only Miss Sharon Bird. And if, well, for those of you who don't know Sharon, some of
Hello.
you, some of you, all my friends list may know Sharon. So Sharon and I go way back to freshman year of high school, to when we became friends, and we were friends all through high school. And then, as happens for a lot of people, we lost touch, going away to college, going doing life, we lost touch until Facebook came along. But even then, we didn't really keep in touch very much. And then it wasn't until about December of 2016, I think it was. Let me
Yeah.
look at my notes. Yep. I gotta look at my notes. Yep. December 2016. I had been given some free tickets to, when I was working for Tony Robbins as a coach, I was given free tickets to an event that was in San Jose, which is near where Sharon lived. So Sharon went to that and then came back and said that she wanted to get involved in coaching and asked if I would coach her. So we set some really big, ground rules. It's like, okay, I'm going to be your coach. We can't intermixing the friendship and the coaching, even though at that point we weren't close, really close at all.
Know so much each other personally again on that level yet.
Right. Yeah. So we started working together back in December 2016, and still are working together. And so, Sharon, who were you? When I was like, hey, you want to go to this event? And when we first started working together, who were you?
Wow. You said December?
Yep.
2015?
16.
16. I was literally signing divorce papers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was in this whirlwind of like, what is going on? And like total reset of my life. Absolutely
Mm-hmm.
reset. So yeah, it was divine timing, because I really needed to, like, who am I outside of this, and yeah. So very, very, very pivotal point.
Mm-hmm. And as far as work-wise too, you had an ice cream shop.
I hadn't had the ice cream shop yet.
Well, when we first started working together in 2016, you had the shop.
Yes. Yeah. That was after the Tony Robbins thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually I bought an ice cream shop, and I was running around like a crazy person, and causing anxiety everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely see the anxiety in my kids and the anxiety in myself, and just I don't miss the ice cream shop.
Yeah. And just,
I mean, I miss the kids, and I miss the people I work with, and the customers and the social aspect of it. But yeah, the whole business part of it was not my thing.
and just for background, just so everybody know, like when we first started working together, anybody knows I used to own a bakery, and I was in the food service business for a long time. And so when we first started working together, and a lot of the stressors that you had were like not knowing how to cost out ingredients. Like you had the shop for a lot, well over a year, and it was like, I don't know what to charge things and how to get the right, get my money back, and all that kind of stuff. So there was a ton of stress. You're working and running it yourself. You had employees, but you still were like doing everything yourself.
I was totally winging it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who were you as far as your daily habits, practices, rituals?
There wasn't anything. There really wasn't anything that that was, I don't want to say self-serving, but there wasn't anything. I wasn't in any way doing anything to balance myself at all.
Yeah.
There wasn't.
Yeah. So growing up, one of the things, and I wish I still had this, but when we were in high school, Sharon took art classes, and I mean, even before high school, art was like a big thing for you. And one time she did a portrait of me. I wish I still had that. You have that?
I'll have it somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
I have it somewhere.
Yeah. But art has always been a big part of your life, and something that you've been passionate about. What was it? What were you like? What was your family's response, and what were you told about your art all growing up?
Um, it's it's funny because my mom is very artistic. My mom's brother is very artistic. It's something I have cousins that are extremely talented, and it's something that runs in our family. But I can remember one time in high school, like my junior year, I came home and I was so excited. I had this huge pile of like art school applications and um, like a massive, because I was junior year, I was going to get on it early, and I came in the house and I was walking upstairs with this massive pile, and my dad was walking down the stairs, and he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Applications for art school." I was so excited, and he said to me, "Art school?" He's like, "That's not brain surgery, Sharon." And it absolutely, like, he might as well just punched me in my gut.
Yeah.
I know that, like, that's not what he meant to do at all, like, obviously, but
Yeah.
it really, like, kind of, um, it set, in my family, if you're not killing yourself for your paycheck, then you haven't earned it, and there's no possible way you can enjoy your job.
Hmm.
So that kind of was ingrained of like, I couldn't possibly make money and do what I enjoyed and loved doing. I have to like slave away some other way that makes me completely miserable.
Yeah.
And so that took a long time to like kind of rewire my brain from that type of thinking.
Yeah.
And I
And
still struggle with it, but
yeah.
not nearly as much.
So I am looking back on notes from our first or very first coaching session. And one of the things that I do with my clients is help them to get clear on what it is that they want to experience. We never talk about goals because that's something like outside of themselves. And when people are always striving towards goals, and they're always miserable afterwards because they're like, I got it, now what? Right. So you talk about creating experiences and creating the feelings that somebody wants to feel. And the experience that you wanted to create was you wanted to experience not second guessing yourself and to have self-confidence.
Yeah. Uh, in my marriage, I completely lost my own ability to like trust my instinct. I was, but I think it goes way back before my marriage. Goes back to childhood and like
Hmm.
totally second guessing myself all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the feelings that you wanted to experience were confident, secure, grounded, and capable. Right. So, and that was dated December of 2016, December 5th of 2016. And so give us a taste of the journey, because you're not only working with me, but you've worked with other people. And I always tell people, like, it's not just like I'm not the answer to everybody, just like this somebody else isn't. Like, we need to have a team of people, right, to help us. We all need this, right? So tell us about like your journey of like having no rituals, no habits, nothing in your life, like as far as self-care, nothing to help nurture this like confidence that you were desiring, to what are the things that you've done in the past 4 years that have shifted and changed who you are.
Um, I have everything changed when Logan passed, when my nephew passed. That I think getting into the business was a really good way of like, I was out of this marriage and, oh no, what am I going to do to support myself? And how am I going to do this? And there was, I think I had made that decision like out of panic and fear,
Mm-hmm.
and then when my nephew passed, it like just, it stopped everything. Like just literally, I mean, it
Yeah.
absolutely stopped my world. But it made me realize that I was absolutely sleepwalking through my life. And it catapulted me in a completely different direction to like look at myself and explore myself and to listen to myself, which I was, I guess, programmed not to do or whatever. I kind of saw that as like a selfish thing. And so it, that event in my life reset everything. I'm crazy grateful that, yeah, I'm not sleeping anymore. So like sleepwalking. I'm, and the work that I've done a lot of plant medicine. I work with 2 different shamans now. I work with you. And just that, like, kind of done so much work on just accepting how I am, you know, and not beating the crap out of myself for who I am, and like liking myself again. Because I remember in high school, like, I liked myself, you know, and then, you know, I just kind of completely lost that person. So it was this really interesting kind of rediscovering of myself again, and lots of hard work, not fun.
Yeah.
Not fun, but like in every sense, like seeing the reward afterwards, and how there is, you know, it's worth the, you know, the worth
The work.
all that shadow work is really, really rewarding. So I'm going to keep at it because I'm more myself and like comfortable in my own skin, and like, if you don't like it, you can leave it, kind of, you know, which is, I don't know if that comes when you hit 40.
It doesn't it does for some people, and it doesn't for other people. But doing all of the energy work that we've done, you know, before your nephew even passed, right? And you were starting to make changes, and to starting to accept that, like, oh, wait a minute, I can be somebody who can help people through my art, right? And then when Logan passed, it was like exploded. And then getting into plant medicine, and, you know, going to Rhythmia, Costa Rica, and that, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, seeing so much shadow stuff. And you have done the work. And I tell you all the time how proud I am of you, because it is a lot. It isn't necessarily always fun. But like, when you think about you, and like being told so much in your life that, you know, your art is not something that you can ever do, like, you know, for a living, or to use and help people. Now what do you, like, what's your relationship with your art, and what are you doing with it now?
Oh, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. It's I used to get, when I did my artwork, I used to be so, wow. And as I'm about to say this, I see how it was like stitched through my whole life. Everything was like, I would get so hung up on the details, and if everything looked perfect and everything seemed okay, and like, now I realize that what I perceived as my mistakes in my artwork were what made it identifiable to me, that to my work. And do you know Chris Sang, right? All right. One time years ago over Facebook or something, I had posted some sort of artwork, and I was saying something about the mistakes in it. And he said to me, whatever, you know, said to me, Sharon, all those mistakes are what makes it look like your artwork. And it was sort of like, he was like, I could tell it was your artwork from the stuff you did in high school. And it was kind of like this huge, like, he gave me like this gold nugget of like, I wonder if he knows that. He gave me like this gold nugget of like, damn, I've been like crucifying myself all these years because everything needed to be just so, when now I can really like embrace my mistakes and just let the work kind of flow through me instead of coming from me.
Yeah.
It's been huge. But since since Logan passed, not long after Logan passed, I started doing a form of blackout poetry. And do you want to talk about this?
Yes, yeah, because I want people to hear like what you're doing now and how you, because before your identity was like, I can't like do this artwork and I can't, like, nobody wants to see it, I can't share it with anybody, and now like you are doing that and sharing it with people. So let's talk about how you're sharing it with people.
Now I probably overshare. Now I kind of realize that like that's what. Okay. In my artwork, even back in high school, I had a turbulent relationship with my mother, who doesn't, right? And I can remember doing these drawings, trying to work out my frustration. And then, so my artwork has always been my way of like kind of working out my anxiety or my emotions. And, which is interesting because I didn't, looking back on it now, I can see that I didn't realize it at the time. And I used to do a ton of poetry when I was a kid, you know, which is interesting because now that's come back around full circle. But I'm in this space now of realizing that like I can be vulnerable and I can be authentic and just put it out there. And it's either it's going to connect with whoever it's meant to connect with. And so not long, about 3 months after Logan's passing, when my kids weren't around, I was having just a really hard time dealing. And I was looking for a way to like distract myself. So I came across blackout poetry, and it's where you take a random page from a book and you find a poem within the page. And then people like usually just black out the words. And I was doing that and I was getting frustrated because I was like looking for a poem. And I thought, what if I did it backwards? What if I just skimmed the pages and whatever popped out at me, I would put a parentheses around. So I started doing that. And the first poem that I did, well, I would do that from the bottom of the page to the top. And then when I rewrote it from the top to the bottom, it was like everything I was thinking of subconsciously like came out. And I was like, holy crap, like this is crazy. So I just kept doing it and it just kept happening. And I kept doing it again and it kept happening. And I couldn't believe, like I was just like seeing my grief pour out onto the page. And eventually I started like sharing it with people, and it would trigger. So I would get these, you know, private messages of like, thank you for posting that. This is what it made me think of, or this is what it brought up for me. And you know, so I was getting like all these messages like that. And so eventually I thought, it made me realize how universal grief is and how none of us get away from it. And that if this process helped me, that it could possibly help other people. And so I developed a course to do it, and have worked really hard to kind of get out of my head about it, and you know, that I'm not a teacher, or wasn't a teacher, and I didn't have a degree, and I didn't have like, you know, all of these stuff on paper. And to just get back to that space of like, okay, I'm supposed to be in the room. I have a tool here that can help other people. And I'm just going to say what worked for me. And so
and so now you're doing the course, and you've been taking people through the course. And I want to say that was something that like when Sharon developed this was like, I can't do this. And when we first started working together, Sharon's like, how do you get an email? Like how do I open email? Right. And so literally like to then be going to a place where she's teaching classes on Zoom, right, and knowing how to use the technology, and now working on her website, like all of those things are big identity shifts. that, not to say that they didn't come without struggle, right? But that's okay. I mean, that, like, I don't know, we have this idea that like we shouldn't have struggle in our lives, to grow into something. But, all of those things, you've grown into the identity of like, I teach someone, how to work with their subconscious and how to process their emotions through my soul poetry class.
Isn't that crazy? That's crazy.
Yes, I know.
That is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I am. It's interesting because right before this, I was, before COVID started, I was working really hard to get my foot in the door at a hospice center here in San Jose because I wanted to do it as part of their grief counseling program. And when I brought it to the counselors, I mean, I had a meeting with the counselors and I brought them the portfolio and explained everything. And they like thought it was awesome. And then when I went back to meet with the administrator, as you know, she tore me apart. You don't have this degree, that degree, and and then COVID hits. So yeah. I start this program there, and then COVID hits, and I can't do it anymore there. But it was kind of like the universe saying, like, here you go. You're stuck at home. Right. Got to make this work. You want to move forward with this.
Yeah.
Make it happen. And screw the degree. And, because I let that get in my head. Now I'm, doing the Zoom classes and working through all the kinks and sitting in front of a laptop doing stuff like that. Right. Is incredible to me because this time last year, as you know, I could sit in front of a computer and have a panic attack.
Right.
Yeah. So lots and lots has changed.
Yeah. And so for anyone watching, is, my friend and I started doing this podcast, Reluctantly Woo Woo, right? And we're talking about all those things that are like, seem unbelievable and just kind of weird, and out there, but seem to work. Thinking about like who you were before we start working together, and we started with the energy work, and then that like led down this road of like all these like, like woo woo things, right? You've also had your foot in the conventional, practices of therapy, like counseling, like all that kind of stuff, right? What would you say to somebody who's like, I don't know, I don't want to try any of this stuff, sounds too wackadoo, like energy work, like any of that kind of stuff. Like, what would you say your experience has been, conventional versus, this wackadoo woo-woo, energy work and shaman stuff and
I have, honest to God, I have gotten more out of the woo-woo work that I've done, a million times more progress.
Yeah.
With working with my shaman, with working with you in energy work, with working with plant medicine, than I ever got in counseling. And I spend a lot of time in counseling. I spend a lot of time on antidepressants and things like that. And you can numb the problem all you want, but until you really get to the core of it, then you're going to be going on that roller coaster. And it really is about looking at the core of what's going on and having the guts to like really dig into that dark stuff and what I haven't learned in the past 3 months alone about core beliefs and the story that you're telling yourself and like challenging those stories and the truth of those stories. And I mean, it's been huge and I would recommend it to anyone. I mean, like I said, I was on a whole lot of prescription drugs and antidepressants and stuff for a long time. And it was just numbing it. It wasn't addressing it. So, right. And and learning to like, take responsibility for your shit, taking responsibility for like, okay, I chose this. This is a big result of all of my choices. And so what do I want to what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And how do I make
Mhm.
the next best decision?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you say that because it's so like we've been conditioned in our society to just numb things and not to be willing to face them. And like I love, that you have faced things head on in so many ways. And as we all do, sometimes kicking and screaming, right? And sometimes like I don't want to do this, right? But and also like I just want to acknowledge because a lot of times people think like, well, I'm going to do this work and then I'm going to wake up a year from now and be a millionaire and like everything in my life is going to be perfect, right? But it's not about that at all. It's about being able to be human, right? It's about being able to feel your feelings, right? To have the experiences and let the experiences be what they are instead of fighting your way through life all the time.
Right. And also knowing that those, like, how many times have I said to you, like, Heather, haven't we worked on this like 1,000 times before? Here
Hmm.
we go again. Like, oh,
Yep.
it's that again. Or, oh, that's what, that
Yeah.
stuck energy or that belief or, um, being willing to like revisit it again and again and again until, and also like surrendering to the fact that it's just always going to be it's all a constant learning, um, a learning and accepting and relearning and accepting and relearning and accepting and,
Yep.
you know surrendering to that fact alone is like half the battle, when
Yep.
you're like, okay, all right, I dealt with that for this time, but it's, may come up again, and not to beat yourself up because it comes back up, because it's going to come back up.
Yeah, it comes back up until we're totally done with it. It's just a spiral, like in our healing, right? We get to a certain place and we're like, okay, I'm done. But it's like, it's taking us to that level. And then it's like, I mean, just like going to school, it's like, you go to kindergarten, you're like, I learned 1 + 1 is 2. I learned math, and then you're good with that. And then you're like, wait a minute, but there's more, right? And then it's like, no, there's calculus and trigonometry and like, all this other stuff, there's always more. So what would you say for somebody who's like, I don't need anybody's help. I can figure this stuff out on my own. Like, what would you say to that person?
Well, that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is we're not doing this. We're not meant to do it by ourselves. We're not meant to do any of this by ourselves. We all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses, and you have to ask for help, and when you need help, and there's no shame in that, yeah, that's been a big lesson for me to be able to like, all right, this ain't my strong point,
Right.
and to be able to be like, okay, okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is helpful because, and I will say, there have been so many times when Sharon and I have been having conversations because we've worked together for so long, and it was like, oh, nothing's changed, and I'm like, okay, but remember you used to respond like this, like you used to be like this, right? But you're so used to who you are now that you think that nothing has changed. But part of my job is to remind you, like who you used to be, to see the change.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you as like that touchstone that can kind of connect the dots for me when I'm sort of, and you're like,
Mhm.
wait a second, hold on a minute. Like, remember just last year you were struggling with this, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's so helpful. I would recommend working with anybody. Highly recommend it, because it's easy for us to get so wrapped up in our heads that we forget our progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to learn more about your soul poetry, where can they find you? I want to just post it up on the thing, to like post a little banner up so they can see where can they find you to get more information.
I'm currently working on a website, but right now I have an artist Facebook page at Sharon Bird Gallery. It's BYRD, and I'm sure you'll post it. And
Hmm.
Instagram also the same name,
Hmm.
where I post different dates, and we're soon going to be on Eventbrite with those dates
Ah,
also. So,
mm-hmm.
so that's where you
Amen.
can find me right now.
Amen. My thing just, I typed it up and then it just deleted or something. So let me just do this one for a time. And while I'm typing this up, talk about your daily chalkboards.
Oh, it's funny. Not long, about a week or so after COVID started, I had this huge chalkboard in my backyard, which is like 9 by 5, that I had painted. I made it and painted it for my kids when they were like tiny. So it's been in my backyard for as long as we've lived here, 3 years now. And at the beginning of COVID, some crazy voice said, drag this out to the front lawn and start illustrating like some of your favorite quotes. And so I did. And so each morning I go outside and I do a new quote. And today's was 121.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd be doing it this long, but I can't imagine.
We never thought we'd been in quarantine for this long.
But I can't imagine not doing it now, because it has been the hugest blessing. Like, I've lived here 3 years, and I know my immediate neighbors, but I have met everybody within a 5-mile radius of my house. Like, it's so cool, because I would never have had these conversations with people. People come by like every day to see what's new on the sign. And it's interesting. Like, it's become like this morning meditation for me. And it's also become like, what do I need to hear? Like, people ask me, how do you come up with the quotes? And it's all like, what did I mess up yesterday? What am I working on? Like, what in my life is something like, what do I need to hear? Because if I need to hear it and it's coming through me out, then somebody else is going to need to hear it it's going to reach somebody. So the chalkboard has been amazing. And I have met all kinds of artists. I've met some of my newest, greatest friends who.
And when we first started working together, Sharon was always like, I don't have any friends out here, because we were both originally from Jersey, and she lives in California now. And she's like, I don't have any friends. I don't have any friends. And and she's like, oh, my friend. And I'm like, oh, you have friends? And she's like, oh, yeah.
Well, I'm like, I talk to everybody, but I don't have like, I didn't have like close friends, but I have a friend, Kari, who comes over and does qigong on my lawn with me. And her husband is this amazing flute player, and he plays the flute around the neighborhood. And I've met my friend Carolyn, who has been, helping me with some of the soul poetry stuff. And I've been saging neighbors on my front lawn, which is crazy. And it's been the world's biggest blessing. It is. And just on Sunday, we kind of had this impromptu meeting on my front lawn, and there was somebody playing a flute, and we brought out the ukuleles, and I brought out the drums, and we had like this little jam session, and people were just kind of coming. So it's kind of interesting that the universe is like sending people to my front lawn now,
That's amazing.
Because of this chalkboard. And it's just been so cool. It's been really, really cool. Like, I can't imagine not doing it. So we'll see how long it lasts.
Yeah. So like, in wrapping up, I just want to share, like, when we talked about this, like, the beginning was like, I didn't have any rituals. I didn't have any habits. I didn't have like self-care, self-love things, right? Didn't have friends. Right? I didn't have a way to like share my art, which was a passion. Right. And I didn't have a connection to myself. Right?
Yeah.
And like all of those things, and there's probably a bunch of other things that we could talk about that weren't there, right? And because of your willingness to dive in and do the work, and I will say, for a lot of people, like I said at the beginning, like, ours is a unique relationship because we did know each other, for like in high school, we're best friends in high school, and then, like I said, lost touch. And so it could be hard for somebody to be like, oh, I don't want to work because you're judging me or whatever. But like, we've just never had that experience. At least I don't think so. Never had that experience in working together. When I'm coaching you, we're coaching you. Like,
Yeah.
we do have our times where we could be friends. And
it's not far off from you as a person. You have never been the person to like blow smoke up your, you
right.
don't, and that is like, you don't get that in many people, so that to me is a blessing. So don't,
Yeah.
You're amazingly talented. You have a huge toolbox, and you're so giving, and keep at it. Cause
thank you.
I wouldn't, I mean, you already know how great.
Yeah. I mean, now you're somebody who's got habits and rituals that support yourself because you're aligned with your identity.
Mm-hmm. Me. Yeah. I mean, I guess my family wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, because it's for me, and this is something that I struggle with. Like, it's either one way or the other. So finding that balance in between, so I'm not all in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I need the meditation, and I need the grounding, and I need the
all the things, right? And so, and she's let go of the ice cream store, and like, that was a big thing, even just to let go of that and say, okay, who am I going to be now? And so I just want to applaud you for constantly being willing to do the work to say, okay, who am I going to be now? And being willing to change, because so many people are like, nope, this is who I am. Especially
I'm sorry, go ahead. I feel like I'm in my authentic self.
Yeah.
And the more that I'm just like, whatever, this is who I am, the more good stuff comes out when I'm not trying to like conform.
Yes.
Just,
and that comes,
here it is.
Yeah. And that comes from like all the energy work of releasing all these trapped emotions and trauma, the plant medicine, it's not something I talk about a ton, but I mean, I'm a big fan of plant medicine, something I've done, over 24 times, and we'll continue to do if ever we can again, to get out of the country and go somewhere. But like, there's, you've done the work. And for anybody who's like, oh, but I just want to work with somebody, and just wave the magic wand. There is no magic wand, right? There's hard work on both ends, right? If you're working with somebody who can work with your conscious and subconscious, right? Most people just work with a coach or therapist who's just working on their conscious mind, but getting somebody to do the subconscious stuff like is a big thing. So thank you for letting me be with you on that journey. I appreciate it.
You know how grateful I am. And you call me on my bullshit, and it's refreshing, and just a constant reminder that, like, even though this in front of me may seem hard, what's coming at you is going, and just keep, the rewards of the work keeps you in the work, and I highly recommend it. Recommend it. Anything worth doing is hard, right? So, I mean,
but when we're aligned and in flow, right, it's not hard the way that people think, right? Like, it's like working out, like you can feel it in your muscles and stuff, but it's not like drudgery, right? It's like, you can know the growth, but it's a good hard.
Yeah, the rewards are priceless. I mean, priceless.
Okay, so just want to say thank you again, just as we wrap up. And if anybody has any questions, and feel free to reach out to myself or to Sharon, and we will both respond. If you want to check out her art stuff, go on Sharon Bird Gallery, follow her on Instagram so you can see her daily chalkboards. I love seeing them. I'm like, how does she come up with all of this stuff? But it's really fun and inspiring. So thank you for coming on and sharing your story. You have to go and check on, there's a comment from Billy. Billy from Rhythmia. So I'll when
Cool.
you log on Facebook. So hey, Billy, we will talk to you all later. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.